Well, greetings, beloved friends. It's 12:12 on April 30th, 2020. And this is a time for us to come into this moment of awareness and ask ourselves, what are we doing right here and right now to be in awareness? Welcome, Stacy Turner. So glad to have you with us, and everyone else that will be joining us as we continue live, and those that join us later checking into these videos. So at this point, welcome Charlotte Hopkins, welcome Mike Brentari. It's so great to have each of you here. I know that there are more that will be joining, so grateful for each and every one of you. Gail, Kendall McFadden, great to have you with us. So as we're in this time, I want to invite us to recognize there's a lot of turmoil in the world right now. And it may be that you're also experiencing that turmoil within yourself. Welcome, Francine Haddock and Jake Campy. You may be in turmoil within yourself. You know, one moment you wake up and you're just in harmony and peace and comfortable with yourself in the midst of what's occurring. And another, you wake up and you've got an energy that's in resistance and frustration and want things to be a different way. Or maybe just fussiness. Maybe that's how I call it for me. When I suddenly come into a place where I'm feeling fussy inside, what do I do with that? And I want to talk about today from a place of awareness, what do we do with our fussiness? What do we do to really transform and change our experience so that we can be a place of peace and harmony? Now, I want to say this applies whether we're dealing with, this COVID experience, whether we're dealing with health challenges of our beloved ones, whether we're dealing with the life that we're living, maybe we want something different for our lives. Whatever it is in you that is creating an inner experience of angst, frustration, wanting it to move forward in a way that maybe it's not yet. Whatever it is, wherever you find that place of fussiness, just sometimes it's not even understood or known. We don't know why we're feeling it. We just know we're feeling it. Welcome, Regina Andrews Duarte. Great to see you here. And so, sometimes I'll wake up having had some intense dreams, recognition of things that are happening in other realms, and they can really create a disturbance in my soul at first. And it's so unlike me, because for me, I wake up with joy and harmony and peace and love and excitement for a new day. That really is where I normally land. But some days, that's not the case. As with every one of us, we have those times that we are not feeling the harmony in that moment, where we're like, don't call me, don't, that it's whatever it may be for you, for each one of us, that we give me space, however we are, in that process. The key is, what do we do when we're in that frustration, when we're in that angst, and how do we turn ourselves around? I love that idea. I think first thing we have to do is the hokey pokey. We have to put our whole self in and turn ourselves around, okay? Because one of the things that happens when we're in that kind of inner moodiness or inner, angst within us is we take everything too seriously. We begin to give such powerful meaning to everything that's showing up in our journey, and we put an emphasis on things that doesn't allow us to be lighter in the moment. And so, I'm not even sure we want to be in that moment. We're like, yeah, don't mess with me. And I don't want to be that. I want to be this right now. And I think we've all had those moments. And we have to laugh at ourselves sometimes and lighten up the energy, because really we're the only one that gets to turn it around. Welcome, Alicia Aaron Lunsford and Keith Vivens and Ruthie Freeman. So great to have each one of you here, and Kimberly Wright and Terry Ward. So how is it that we shake it all around about and turn ourselves around? I do think that in this process, we get to notice, what is it that I'm perpetuating in my mind in the midst of whatever I'm experiencing? what story have I aligned with, I've made true in such a way that I don't give myself or others an out of that story. Well, this is the way it is. We become absolutists in that moment. And I always laugh about that whenever we think it's one way and there's only one way for it to be. We take ourselves out of the fields of possibility, of the awareness that there are always omnidimensional things that are going on. And when I say that, all dimensions at one time are happening, all awarenesses, and we're choosing our particular perception or perspective at a given moment. Welcome, Lynn Beal. Great to have you with us, and George Wozniak and Marcy Hale. Great to have you here. So what perception have we chosen to lock into place and make it the reality that we're buying into in that moment? Now, I don't think this is necessarily easy to transform our perception or our thinking. And yet, if we do it, it's instantaneous in shifting where we are coming from and what our experience is of life. You know, we create our reality. This is one of the great gifts of being a God being, of being a divine light, of a Christ consciousness, whatever name you want to give to that, light awareness. If we are operating from awareness, then we begin to no longer hook into that particular perception and then continue to perpetuate the story about that, but we begin to notice that there may be other perceptions. First of all, because we may have something we're resisting. We maybe don't like the way someone else is showing up, or we don't like the way the world is showing up, or we don't like the way we're showing up. You know, that's part of it too. We show up in a particular way, and I don't particularly like it when I show up fussy. Right? Rather than showing up in my, wonder and awe and joy and celebration and being a presence for light in the world. I mean, that is who I am at core. It's who each of us are at core. We have this ability, but we have moments that we're still wrestling with a consciousness within us that has different kinds of beliefs, different feelings. And usually it's because we've bought into a particular perception and we're in resistance to something about that. Number one, I'm perceiving it this way as the way it is. Boy, there's a lot of people today that are willing to tell us how it is. We're willing to tell us about the virus and how it is. And there's so many different views. I don't know if you've seen the video out there of the person that says, well, it's 2 feet, it's 4 feet, it's 6 feet, it's 13 feet. It's non-existent. It's, what are all the mixed messages that we're receiving at this time? And we don't know what's truth or what's not. And that's an interesting perception right now, that we don't necessarily know what the truth is. Hello, Jeff Lobeck. Glad to have you join us. And so great to have you here. And in this process, we are getting to choose which perception really brings me to peace in my soul, which perception allows me to be inclusive of all the parts and others' perceptions, and which perception do I choose in this moment that frees me from this place of angst within me. We all have these places of angst, and when we get into that and we are fighting what is, or fighting our own perception of what is what we're really doing. See, it's not even that we're in battle with what's out here. It's always an inner journey. When we begin to understand the way that the universe operates is inside out. The way that consciousness operates is everything is created at the level of spirit in a consciousness, then it is brought into form, into physical manifestation. Welcome, Beverly Johnson. Glad to have you join us. And in this process, we're getting to look at what am I creating in that number one, spiritual belief. What's my spiritual core essence and understanding of this universe? If I believe that somehow that this universe is totally about good, bad, right, wrong, and all the polarity, then I'm constantly bounced between those polarities within my own being. If I believe that it absolutely is a benevolent universe, this is the universal consciousness is always moving us to higher good, to higher awareness, working with us for us to claim and know a more profound truth of our oneness with all of creation. It has much diversity within it. And in this world, there may be polarity, but the truth of my divine nature and the infinite essence that we are is this benevolence that's working towards greater good. But it's an idea until we embrace and embody that consciousness. And what's happening as the universe is trying to support us in expanding our awareness, in opening to a higher realization of ourselves and our place in the divine play. And in that process, then, we are getting to decide, do I embrace that truth? And where do I have the resistance? Well, we'll find out pretty quickly when we show up that day fussy, when we have that moment that we're in a holding an absolute as this or that, rather than embracing a greater consciousness that all the different perspectives are perspectives. They are perceptions of reality. And through that, I am creating and recreating my world. So when I'm in that moment of fussiness and I want to shake it all about and turn myself around, then I get to decide, am I willing to open to other perceptions? What else could be true? What else could be true than what I have claimed or think that I know in a given moment? Welcome, Tim Berneman, and welcome, Cynthia Burrell. Glad to have you with us. And Ricky Buffington, welcome. Glad you're here with us. In this process, I get to realize where I have locked myself in. I've put myself in lockdown to a particular perception. What an interesting idea. I love how the universe reflects our own inner consciousness and gives us an opportunity to realize and reevaluate and open to more expanded awareness. You know, there's that question, are we actually in lockdown at this time? Or are we in a time of deep inner reflection and reunification of our own selves with nature, with the world, with consciousness in a new way? You know, there's so many ways to define what's happening. There's so many ways to define what's happening within us in our moment of fussiness. And in that moment, then I get to decide, am I willing to turn myself around? Am I willing to open to something more expanded than what I have myself locked into? Because when I lock myself into that belief, that perception, that perspective on life, then I really limit the paths and the outcomes and the experience that is available to me. Even if it's not about the outcomes, it's about the experience in this moment, because from this moment and the feelings that I hold and the experience that I have is where I create my next moment. That's the opportunity I have to create something new again and again and again, to create a new realization of what's possible, a realization of something higher in my own being. Every moment we have the opportunity to redefine what is it that is occurring, and what narrative we tell ourselves will create that inner fussiness or that inner magnificence. For one, I like to play in the realm of joy and humor and lightness of being. And I know I can get intense at times. And so I know that that's a signal for me that I've gotten hooked into something. My intensity is really just feedback. See, if the earth and everything that we're experiencing is feedback on how I'm perceiving the world, on what perceptions I'm holding as true, then I can begin to take it a little lighter. I can say, oh, I can see that this is reflecting back to me that I'm holding this perception in play. And is it really serving me anymore? Maybe it's time for us to gain new perceptions, to put our whole self in, shake it all about, and turn ourselves around. And as we turn around, take a look 360 degrees. Take a look from over here. What's the perception? What's the perception over here? What's the perception from behind me, above me, below me, all around me? See, there's a Native American tradition that I love and used to teach, and well, I still teach sometimes in my retreats and different things. And it's called Owl Eyes. And it is really about anchoring into our senses in a more profound way that expand us beyond what we're experiencing through our senses in this moment. Now, we know we're talking about our physical senses and we're talking about our divine senses both. But as you sit with owl eyes as an example, and you can do this with all of your senses one at a time, or however you choose to really open yourself, you sit absolutely still in meditation, in quiet, in realization of not just what you see in front of you, but the energy and the consciousness and the experience of all of life all around you. And you begin to notice not just what I notice with my eyes open and what I can see without moving. I don't need to move and look peripherally or anything. I stay absolutely still and I notice what I notice in front of me. And then I begin to invite myself, what do I see above me? What do I see beside me? What do I see below me? What do I see behind me? And what we're doing is actually expanding our awareness of all the ways that our consciousness operates in a higher way with our senses. They go beyond just our immediate, quick physical awareness. Our eyes take in, and every one of our senses take in so much more than we give them credit for. When we stop and pay attention, we might actually see what is behind us, what is below us. And as a result of that, we open ourselves to expanded awareness. So it's like that when we recognize that we've come in and we're suddenly fussy, we're having a lockdown on a particular viewpoint. And when I can stop and expand my awareness, open myself, whether it's physically in those perceptions, whether it's in my mental capacity, in the thoughts that I'm thinking and the feelings I hold, or whether it's in this spiritual awareness that is beyond just this physical form. Every way that we approach that will transform our experience. You know, sometimes we think that we have to transform it in this level at consciousness, and then it will happen physically. But I've also found sometimes you can transform physically and it will change what you're perceiving. So either way that you go about it. An example of that would be if you're feeling frustration, depression, notice where you're holding your energy, your tension, and tighten it up and then let it go. Or, you know, if you are someone who has been going through depression, notice your posture. People in depression, they're slumped over, they're hung down, and you can change your body posture and actually begin to change an experience because of that. So I want you to be aware of the different ways that you have available to you to transform your fussiness, to transform your experience of life. Welcome, Donna Crystal. Welcome, Diana Presley. So great to have you all with us. That if we individually start taking responsibility for being willing to transform that moment when we are locked down and begin to open up to a wider worldview, a wider consciousness view, then we can literally begin to be masters of our reality, masters of our experience. We can't be in charge of the world in any way, shape, or form, as much as we want to, as much as we'd like to, and we think we have certain levels of control. We really don't. Welcome, Gisela from Italy. Great to have you with us. And in this now moment, what we do have The opportunity to transform is our awareness, our perspective, to turn ourselves around and open to the other ways of viewing or perceiving or creating a reality. We can create a different reality for ourselves. So let that fussiness go. Definitely shake it all about and turn yourself around and lighten up. Lighten up in the journey and give yourself the freedom to say, oh, well, what if? If you can't quite get there yet, just play what if. What if I could do that? What might I feel like? What if, or what might I believe, or what might I think? The more we can find ways to invite ourselves there, the quicker we make that turnaround. So it is my delight to be with you in these awareness moments and open ourselves to the infinite ways that we want to play in this universe. And I'm really glad that I have ways that I can overcome my fussiness when I'm willing. That's part of it. I've got to be willing, right? So I hope you're willing to transform those places in you and really bring forth the light that you are into this world and shine that light of perception into new corners of consciousness for yourself and see what might be possible. God bless you, friends. Have a fabulous, fabulous day.